They called them angels in human form and kept them behind the velvet curtain of the chapel, voices cut like a promise and polished until they shone. Imagine a choir whose sound could lift stone, whose high notes made cardinals weep. Imagine those notes bought at the cost of a childhood. The truth, buried in archives and whispered in the margins of music treatises, is both wondrous and terrible. For centuries, the papal choir drew its most prized voices from boys altered by force, their bodies changed so that the human voice might hang between heaven and earth. This is not a neat moral parable. It is a story of power and prayer, of sanctified beauty and private cruelty, of men who became the living instruments of a church that worshipped sound as if it were a sacrament. If the idea unsettles you, good. Let it unsettle you in the way history should, by refusing easy comforts, by making us listen to the cost behind the beauty. If you want more of these candlelit, bone-deep histories told with the care and quiet they deserve, like and subscribe. Stay, and we will lift the veil together.
The Boy and the Bell. Origins, recruitment, and first sacrifices. The earliest step into this world is deceptively domestic. A village street at dawn, a mother wrapping a child's head against the morning chill, a stranger passing with the promise of training and patronage. This video walks at ground level with the boys who became castrati, the social pressures that drove families to sell a child's voice, the pastoral and urban networks that funneled talents toward ecclesiastical institutes, and the first intimate moment when an ordinary boy was measured for an extraordinary fate. I will place you in the rafters of a simple chapel where the smell of beeswax and warmed wine mixes with dust, and in the cool white stone of a training school where tutors mapped breath like a secret geography. Here the language is concrete, the practical reasons families agreed to such sacrifices, the role of poverty and aspiration, the offers of security that masked permanent loss. Where records are thin, we will call out rumor and priestly correspondences. Where evidence exists, I will use it to reconstruct scenes of bargaining, of late-night consolations whispered into pillows, and of the first small triumph when a boy's voice climbs and the world seems to tilt. The moral tone is intimate and tragic, not a denunciation without nuance, but a portrait of human choices pressed by circumstance into wrenching consequence.
The crucible of sound, training, discipline, and the making of voice. A castrato's life was training writ large, relentless hours of breathwork, solfege etched into waking hours, and tutors who taught the body to become an instrument. This video enters the closed rooms where physiology and pedagogy met. We will describe the ateliers and conservatories where young singers learn to hold a tone like metal held to flame, the measured tyranny of exercise regimes, and the cultured silence demanded by patrons who paid handsomely for perfection. The sensory world shifts to sweat and chalk, to the metallic tang of brass and the reverent hush before rehearsal. I'll explore how voice teachers prized purity and control, how techniques developed to extend range and sustain phrase, and how music theory of the era both praised and demanded the castrato's unique timbre. The story will not ignore pain, but it will treat bodily change clinically and historically. The focus is on how these men were crafted into sonic phenomena, how their singing became both vocation and marketable commodity, and how the church's appetite for celestial sound shaped the institutions that made it possible.
Behind the velvet, life in the chapels, status, and human cost. The chapel was a palace of paradox, religious solemnity and courtly splendor, public devotion and private hierarchies. This video brings us into that contradiction, following castrati from choir loft to dining table, from adulation to seclusion. We will trace their ambiguous social position, respected, often wealthy, yet forever marked by their origin. In cloisters and courts, their voices were prized. In private, they could be isolated, feted but contained. The prose will smell of candle smoke and perfume, of old vellum and gilt wood, and will attend to small cruelties, the gossip that followed an altered body, the politics of preference among patrons, the ways fame could cage as much as it could elevate. Where records mention names and pensions, I will use them. Where anonymity prevails, I will evoke the common texture of life, the training hall's echo, the cathedral's cold breath, the quiet meal eaten alone despite applause. This is the ground-level human ledger, honors written in gold, wounds that no coin could heal.
An army of angels, institutional power, politics, and performance. Now widen the frame to the institutions that sustained and exploited the practice, the papal court, noble patrons, and a cultural economy that prized sound as both devotion and display. This video examines how the Church's need for ornate liturgy and the court's hunger for spectacle created a market for castrati, how musical taste and politics braided together so that a single voice might bolster a faction or symbolize a piety. We will consider the diplomatic uses of performance, the prestige conferred by a chapel of prodigious singers, and the administrative machinery, registers, stipends, and contracts that turned voice into currency. Sensory detail becomes ceremonial. The incense-dampened hush of high mass, the rustle of brocade during a papal ceremony, the clipped footfalls as a choir files into an audience chamber. At the same time, the chapter will ask hard questions about consent, exploitation, and the complicity of institutions that sacredized the very instrument that had been severed from many boys' futures.
Echoes and reckonings, myth, memory, and the modern gaze. The final video traces how later generations remembered and obscured what happened. It considers composers who wrote for castrati and audiences who fell in love with their sound, the surge of celebrity some achieved, and the slow moral reappraisal that condemned the practice. We will follow the trail into 19th century reformers who decried the custom, into late performances that lingered as relics, and into the lone recorded voices that survived into the modern era, altering how we imagine the past. The prose will be elegiac, smelling of old scores and polished wood, and will ponder what is lost when beauty is built on harm. Was the castrato an angel or an artifact of a merciless social calculus? Where historians disagree, I will set out the competing interpretations and name the places where evidence is rumor, where memoirs glitter with self-justification, and where archives keep the quiet accounts of payments and pensions. The question at the heart of this chapter is not only how we judge the past, but how the past judges us back.
They sang as if to lift stone from its bed, and we have listened to that singing fall into silence and into ledger pages. The chapel's incense still seems to linger when we think of boys whose bodies were altered so that humanity might be reshaped into music. The echo of their voices carries equal parts wonder and indictment. Remember the smell of beeswax on choir stalls, the chill of white stone, the hush before a phrase that could halt a court. Remember, too, the quiet bargains, the whispered promises to families, the contracts and ledgers that turned flesh into patronage. Beauty and brutality braided each other so tightly that it is almost impossible to tell where devotion ends and exploitation begins. Historians argue, memoirs rationalize, and archives keep their cold receipts. Between those margins are real people who learn to live inside a sound and to pay for it with everything else. Let that unsettle you. If you want more of these slow, unflinching histories told with the care they deserve, subscribe and press like. Then tell me in the comments which part of this story clings to you, and we will pull another thread from the past together.